What's up, guys? So, I've been playing a lot of Akshan decks in the last couple of days since the expansion. I'm having a lot of fun with him. There are so many different ways of playing Akshan. We played an Akshan Fiora, like a Mono Fiora, using Akshan Shurima deck earlier. We played a bunch of like weird, like chip kind of Akshan stuff. But by far my favorite in terms of some of the games that it led to that were really degenerate was Akshan Lee Sin. Now, this is a pretty powerful deck. It'd probably end up being like high tier 2 or low tier 1. The only real question behind Akshan Lee Sin is this Shurima build of Lee Sin going to be better than the Targon one? And it comes down to how much aggro is in the metagame. Without as much access to Eye of the Dragon, we're going to be a little bit starved out on it sometimes, you know, in some games where we don't draw it at all. But in games where we're drawing Eye of the Dragon, the Shurima version outperforms. And that's actually pretty crazy because Targon Lee Sin is one of the best decks in the game right now. I mean, I have it listed as tier 1, standard Lee Zoe. And Akshan fulfills a pretty similar role in this deck as Zoe does in that one. It's just like an early unit, gets a little bit of chip damage in, and of course usually threatens getting a good amount of value from the free Warlord's Palace that will be completed. I even was able to get the Warlord's Horde completed in one or two of the games. This one is not going to happen as much with this deck, usually because you're just killing them before that can happen, but it's definitely on the table as well. Either way, Akshan just getting the free value, free Shapestone Enabler. He's just doing so much for this deck that doesn't really have any use out of a second champion slot, and this is kind of Akshan's biggest problem with a lot of decks, because there's a lot of decks like, you know, Zed's Sivir that would love to run Akshan, or Sivir LeBlanc might be able to fit in some kinds of Akshan kind of stuff, but those decks are really hard to make room in the champ slots for Akshan to be competitive, right? He fits really perfectly into a deck like Shurima Lee Sin though, and makes it quite a bit better because this deck didn't have a second champ slot that it was using. Now, for those of you guys who might be unfamiliar with the disgusting combo kill that is Lee Sin, it's pretty straightforward. You level your Lee Sin by casting 8 spells. At that point, he challenges a unit and casts Dragon Rage on it. If Lee Sin has access to Overwhelm as a keyword and 10 attack, he will kill the Nexus from 20 health because Dragon's Rage will deal 10 damage and his blocker will be removed, so his Overwhelm will deal the other 10 damage. This is the premise of Lee Sin decks, and often you're not doing a 20 health kill, often you're killing them from like 16 or 18 after like a couple of Akshan chips or something like that. But in Targon we use Zenith Blade or sometimes Gifts. In the Shurima version of Lee Sin, we also have two different ways of getting Overwhelm. We're getting it off of the Absolver being leveled up and just like killing right away with that, or we're getting it off of Payday. Now, there is one interaction with Absolver. If you use it as the 8th trigger for Lee Sin, you aren't getting the Absolver's return. He does have to be leveled before you cast the first Absolver on him, but it's a really excellent source of 2 spell triggers for 2 mana, 1 card, and just OTKing the opponent from almost any health amount, as long as your Lee Sin is already leveled up, which he pretty much already will be in this super fast deck. Basically, this style of Lee Sin plays a little bit faster and a little bit looser. It's more of like a combo-y kill deck instead of just like, you know, stalling and jerking off until the combo happens. You bring the combo to your opponent, so to speak. Now, you've got a lot of excellent ways of doing that. Payday is 2 spell triggers for 2 mana and 1 card, which is absolutely ridiculous. And you'll see in some of these games that are in the rest of this video, my Lee Sin is flipping on like turn 6 pretty commonly in a lot of these games, right? And a lot of that is due to just these super efficient Shurima cards being able to flip him at just ridiculous mana ratios, right? Like I mentioned, Payday is 2 mana for 2 spell triggers. Feral Prescience is 0 mana for a spell trigger. Shapestone is, you know, 1, and this is part of your going off combo. This is part of how you're going to have enough damage to kill. So you just have such ridiculously efficient spells for your mana point that your Lee Sin will be leveled very quick and will often just combo kill your opponent. Another really unfair thing that this deck does is Feral Prescience actually is completely perfect in this deck. Now, I know a lot of decks don't run Feral Prescience, and that's because Feral Prescience is not really a great value card, being, you know, a 0 mana that just doesn't really affect the board or anything that turn. In fact, even refined Lurk decks are cutting down or completely out of Feral Prescience. It's not really an amazing card in general. In this deck, it fulfills a really important role. I mean, Lee Sin is, of course, very combo oriented. Being able to predict is nice. The 0 mana spell trigger, though, is really insane for Lee Sin in a pretty good amount of situations, right? You can use it to sometimes trigger Eye of the Dragon or Deep Meditation on weird turns where you you wouldn't otherwise. But the craziest thing is, and if you've played against Lee Sin at a decently high level, you'll know that good players will play Lee Sin only when they have enough mana to protect him. And with Feral Prescience being an option, it can allow you to play Lee Sin earlier and have 0 mana protection for him, because you need to cast 2 spells in a round to get Barrier, and Lee Sin's Barrier every turn is what causes him to be effectively immortal through the mid stages of the game. So having guaranteed access, even if you're really low on spell mana, to a way to give Lee Sin Barrier is going to be leading to some huge blowouts, because if your opponent thinks that there's no way the Lee can get Barrier this turn, and they can just go in, they can commit everything to kill him, and then you just give Barrier, then you're basically winning the game off of that. And if they're aware Feral Prescience is in the deck, then they might not commit, even if they, because they don't know Feral Prescience might not be in your hand, right? So they might not be able to commit either way. And this card represents a lot of really unique value towards this tempo game plan. We're not really running out of resources because we have both Preservarium and Deep Meditation, so Prescience as a 2-of makes a ton of sense here. And, you know, we've got Soothsayer that'll give Spell Shield in some matchups, and Spell Shield is pretty nice on both Lee Sin and Akshan. There will be some weird matchups where the fact that you're giving Spell Shield to the Warlord's Palace will actually matter. If you're against like Ezreal Draven, sometimes they actually do want to just use Scorched Earth on something like this. So, I mean, that can make it a little bit awkward for them. But the biggest thing to talk about here is Payday. Now, these lucky finds can choose between 9 different buffs, and it's a search 3, so the math on that is simple. You have a 33% chance of finding any given from any individual Payday. And that means if you're looking for a Spell Shield, you've got a 33% chance to hit Spell Shield. Keep this in mind. A lot of times, if you don't have the Absolver, you might need the Overwhelm, and you will go in for that, but you'll usually have the Absolver in this deck. And of course, you can sometimes roll into plus damage. In the pool of Payday, there is a +2 attack, a +2 health, and a +1/+1 as 3 of the 9 different keywords you can get from Payday. Apart from those 3 and the Overwhelm and the Spell Shield, you're not really going to get much other value from the other keywords from Payday, but just keep those in mind. There's a lot of matchups where you'll want to pre-Payday to play around something that, you know, Spell Shield might protect you from. Like, for example, against the Zerarelia, if you want to be protected from something like Homecoming, they have a pretty hard time popping the Spell Shield, so it'll just be insurmountable value there. So, yeah, that's it. This is my Lee Sin Shurima deck with Akshan, and it's actually pretty great. I know a lot of you guys might be disappointed that I'm putting another Akshan deck out instead of a Viego deck, because yesterday I also did you know, an Akshan deck. But honestly, I'm having so much fun playing Akshan, and I think Viego's not bad. He needs to fit into a very specific deck. You know, I think I might end up like refining a version of Viego Shurima for sure. And he's just a little bit less appealing to me personally. You know, I'm a big fan of, you know, the faster and more combo-y playstyle of Akshan rather than Viego's like super outgrind, but I will be messing around with Viego too. Alright guys, so that's the deck. Make sure to check the pinned comment as always to find an updated version. It'll probably be a couple of cards different from this when you import it, because I'm always updating my deck list. And yeah, enjoy the videos from today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh yeah, scout attack me, dude. Let's go. 18. Alright. Oh, triple overwhelm. Oh, baby. This is the cleanest deck list I've seen. First half Shurima, second half Ionia. Listen, it's not really a coincidence. Like, Aurelia Azir, Zed Sivir, Lee Sin Shurima. Do you guys see any pattern here? Any observations we might be making about these 3 decks? Yeah. It is a clean deck, I agree. We clicked the 2 colors. It's nuts. Alright, so in the Zed version, I think keeping Palm kind of has to be worth. This is actually almost a perfect hand. I'll go for it. Yeah, the combination of Shurima and Ionia is a pretty good combination. Is Shurima strong? Yeah, they're nuts right now. They got hyper buffed. I don't think there's a single thing that can punish this. So I'll always like get it out for the countdown first and for the open attack. And this feels really, really good when this happens. Like, this is just super free. Don't even have to worry about any like tricks. So the question is, okay, so I spent 2 mana on this Warlord's Palace thing. How ahead am I feeling right now? Oh, I forgot to think about literally putting in Grappling Hook. Okay, I don't think main deck Grappling Hook is good enough. Not in this deck. I mean, without paydays, our Lee Sin's not going to be leveled until turn 7. Sag. Imagine a Lee Sin that levels that slowly. Turn 7. Alright, this is fine though. I think I'm alright with this. I mean, this is a permanent one. I don't really want to commit for 2 spells on the offensive turn. We want to be a little bit mana efficient. Like, I will need to play Lee Sin next turn and have enough mana to be able to... It doesn't need to protection on the offensive turn or the trigger. I could, like, just challenge something next turn, which would be really nice if he does have something like a Rune Runner. I think just letting this through is good. I don't think there's any reason to palm here. I could even play second auction, actually. I think that this is fine. Like, I'm super happy about just, like, because I was going to burn the mana anyway. I just want to keep my resources up, and palm is actually, like, an important resource. Alright. Yeah, Feral Prescience just being a 0 mana burst spell. Like, even when you tap under with Lee Sin, you can still give him barrier. That's a big fucking deal, by the way. That's scary. That's really, really something else. Yo, Cahill the Great. What's up, man? Thanks for the Prime sub. And I think Lee is just perfectly fine to play out here. I mean, we're playing around his palm. Like, he'll have some kind of vulnerable, but between us having, like, the Lee Sin barrier is actually something that this deck can't really get around. So I do want to double trigger spells here, and that's for Eye of the Dragon as well as Deep Med next turn. And I think I'll just be perfectly fine using a Sonic Wave. So in this case, Akshan getting a free threat looks pretty good. He can't really pop my barrier here, right? Which is really nice. It's why our Lee can safely attack. And the one he can protect is the one that, well, I guess he can protect either of them, but he can more easily protect the one from Lee Sin. So it's probably best for me to just do this. And the one that matters more to him is probably the Profiteer. So this looks fine. Like, Akshan will probably go down here, but he's still expending some actual resources for that. Yeah, Feral in this deck might actually be kind of crazy. It'd be kind of nuts. Maybe Akshan Lee Sin is the answer, guys. I mean, it's Shurima Ionia. What more does a deck need? You know? Alright, so we get the Relic of Power, which is pretty sweet here. Like, I mean, the spell trigger for 0 plus just predicting is really, really nice. Gives us a lot of flexibility. Man, maybe the Warlord's Horde actually does complete in this deck sometimes. Like, this took a really specific game. God, am I running 3 Sonic Waves? This is so dumb. If you actually do have a fast enough game, the Warlord's Horde will actually level up. Like, you're getting some really fast double triggers off of the Sonic Wave stuff. It's just more Lee Sins, right? I think, like, more Sonic Wave is good. The thing we need right now is Overwhelm. Ah, good old Lee Sin. It'd be really funny if this did actually end up being the best way to play Lee Sin. I could literally just have all 3 decks at the top just be Ionia Shurima. Oh, that is great. And yeah, I mean, he doesn't really have good ways of getting through Lee Sin's barrier. That's cool. Whee! Part of it. And we get our Absolver, which is kind of like all we need anyway, right? I mean, I can Feral here, right? Another Lee Sin. How many Lee Sins is actually too many Lee Sins? I could just go for all 3. I mean, we already have Overwhelm, so aren't we just like maximizing damage? We need to play around, we need Spell Shields. What are we losing to here? The fact that that deck doesn't really have good access for ways of dealing with barrier is a really, really big deal. Yep. This is kind of like the best bet, because that way the Lee Sin at least dies. But of course, I mean, I can protect this Lee Sin pretty easily, actually. And even if this Lee Sin dies, I will just play another one anyway. In this case, I think it's actually worth protecting. I think I force out a more valuable tool from his side. Like, I can win by starving him out of resources, right? Nah, let's just kill him next turn. All right. I do want to. So, do we have confirmation of how, like, Absolver on 7 out of 8 Lee Sin works? I'm sure someone must have seen Absolver on 7 out of 8 Lee Sin. Oh wait, I can't test it here because Akshan already leveled up anyway. It doesn't give a copy if it's 7 out of 8. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so that does definitely hurt this deck a bit because like that would happen in a decent amount of games, but it's a pretty minor thing, all things considered. So you don't get the Absolver's return if it's your last way to level Lee Sin. Pretty fringe that would matter anyway. So I mean, in this case, I can basically just attack in here. If I have enough for the overwhelm, that would force Palm, which is really nice. I kind of like forcing a Palm here. And I can actually threaten Sivir just by like dragging with the Sonic Wave anyway. I think that's the best thing to do. Just like play more Sonic Waves. Yeah, it's gotta be. Like, I want to threaten something like Palm anyway. We shouldn't really feel like we're in a hurry to close out the game, right? So we can force out an answer, some way to potentially like keep Sivir alive just by doing this. Good old Lee Sin. And pre-committing Payday just doesn't make sense. If he plays Twin, it's probably worth it for me to like retrade Twin. Sivir is kind of one of our only lose conditions, so just like maximizing odds of her dying is best here. I don't mind this way of playing Lee because at least you don't have to play it like a bitch. Yeah, I mean, you at least go in more aggressively. Missed 1 damage. Oh, you got me. I missed my 1 damage from Eye of the Dragon. Yep, this is pretty standard play. Like, we're forcing out a Palm, which is still really good here. And he has no choice but to do that. Okay. So Lee's always getting Barrier for free. I mean, if I wanted to spell shield it, I would Payday him now. But I think it's actually kind of better to not commit this Lee Sin, because if it dies, I'll just play my 3rd one anyway. Fucking Lee Sin, dude. Swear to God. Alright, so he needs, I mean, he doesn't have like Flurry or Young Witch anymore since we taxed those. So he doesn't really have any way of threatening anything scary here, right? Is he literally about to skip his attack? His attack here sucks. I think he's priced into burning my mana. That's hilarious. His attack here literally does nothing. Alright, we're getting Horde up. Create and hand a 0-cost copy of Lee Sin. Oh, don't mind if I do. Lee Sin Spell Shield. Your cards cost 1 less this round? Honestly, that one's too juicy. Mister, you're Rune Runner. Yeah, I think the safest thing to do is just this. So this will level my thing. It's at focus speed. There's no reason to play another spell. Like, blocking the Rune Runner is safe enough. I don't actually need to keep these Shapestones. Yeah, I think I can literally just use probably the Twin Disciplines instead of the other Shapestone. See it making a difference. Alright, nice. Sivir is leveling up after this. I think he should be basically out of effective tricks right now though. So the question is, yeah, I mean, Akshan is good enough. I think he's a good value. He's really like Zoe. I mean, it's like you guys were saying that like that is a good comparison. Akshan's kind of like the Zoe of this concept. He's killing my eye. I mean, you can have my eye, mister. Alright. So, this one gives him Spell Shield, which basically means we beat anything, right? I don't think we're losing to anything at that point. I mean, he has Overwhelm without needing Absolver. I guess I got double Overwhelm. Okay. I guess he's got Spell Shields. That's weird. This doesn't seem okay. Something seems a little bit wrong. Really makes you think. It really does kind of make you think. Let's just play a few more. Oh, triple Overwhelm. Oh, baby. Yeah, okay. Double Palm. Oh, the deny. How much damage am I missing? All right, I guess I'm also a Palmer. All right, sir. You've bought yourself one turn. Can you get through my second and third Lee Sins? Oh, he's drawn. This is actually a really fucked matchup, by the way. And, you know, Zed Sivir is a very good deck, too. But, like, the fact that they have no really way of... You have no real way of dealing with their barrier, and you can usually slow them down just enough. Like, if you're not drawing Lee Sin, you're not... That's kind of, like, the only way you're losing this. Not drawing Lee Sin. I think the Feral Presciences are really big in this deck. I think they're actually so perfect here. Yeah, they're super huge. This feels insane. Shield is easily the best card from Horde overall. Yeah, that's probably true in a majority of circumstances for the kinds of decks it's in. I don't know. I mean, it's got some really good options. I mean, I guess I can just stun it now, right? Is it gonna make a difference when I do this? Don't see how it could. This Lee Sin deck is super strong. Yeah, I'll refine this a little bit. You guys are right. You guys are right. I did underrate the potential of Lee Shurima. Like, it does have a good amount going for it. Do you think this list is better than Rivendrave and Akshan? Yeah, I mean, it's a Lee Sin deck. Even if this ends up being slightly worse than like Lee Targon, it'll still probably be better than that deck. And at this point, I mean, there's a good chance that Lee Shurima stands out on its own. Like, Lee Shurima's hot. Okay. Oh, look at him go. He's up to 16. Mister, 16 is no good here. All right, let's count it. Let's see how much we got. Oh, all right. Absolver. Hang on. Absolver's return. Wait for it. No, not yet. Hang on. I'm not done. Let me come. Come on. Just give me a couple more seconds. I was almost there. Fucking denied. Joke's on him. I'm into that. God damn it. Coom denied. This deck is so stupid. Why do you run 2 Akshans only? I don't know. Double drawing him isn't great. Breaking right of crawling isn't great. And I don't know what I want to cut for the third one. Akshan's kind of the flex slot right now. I mean, I guess the short answer is like auto 3 of being champions doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, I honestly think I really don't know how I like Akshan in this list. We keep Eye of the Dragon in basically every matchup, by the way. Yeah, we have to. I don't need to keep Sonic Wave since it's a 3 of. Even slower decks, by the way, keeping Eye is still kind of important. Unless they're like control decks. But even like slower mid-range decks that have like beefy units, Eye is still going to be a force to chunk down, like, you know, like Shyvana stuff. You're still stalling out dragons a shit ton, right? So don't think that Eye is just anti-aggro. You only mulligan it away in like the super controlling matchups. Like maybe Lee Sin Mirror or stuff like, yeah, Shadow Isles Failure kind of stuff. I already had a mirror match with this deck and it wasn't fun. And that's what you get for playing this deck. I mean... What from me? Takes a pass here. I don't think I'm in that much of a hurry to persevere him. He could be on a little too much. Eye of the Dragon is like a much better Heimer. Yeah, Eye of the Dragon is kind of like a 1-mana Heimer that summons better turrets that don't take actions. Like, can we compare Eye of the Dragon to Heimer? Like, it's a great comparison. This is literally 1 mana. And it does more than Heimer. It does literally, the turrets have lifesteal. Heimer doesn't get a fucking lifesteal turret. Where's Heimer's lifesteal turret, dude? Like, that's so sad, dude. Holy shit. What the fuck? How has Eye not been nerfed yet? Heimer's a 2/4 now, though. True. He's a 2/4. He's a 2/4. You got me. All right. So I can't play Eye while threatening Shapestone. I think that's okay. I don't really need to like develop Eye into next turn. I think I do want to like threaten that. Like let's play Preservarium early and just make sure we're getting our draws. Like the only way this deck loses is just off of its own consistency, which is why I'm like I almost just want to run third Feral. Like when you think about it, the entire point of Akshan leveling up is so that you can get basically a Feral Prescience in your hand, right? Like the whole point is every time he levels up, we're just gonna go for the 0 mana time trick, which yeah, it draws a card, whatever. But it's basically just a Feral. And he has like his mana commitment on top of that too, you know? What is the point? I kind of like Waking Sands here. Looks pretty solid. Just a nice way of stopping this attack. Does this attack need to be stopped? Ooh, good enough for me. 2 Absolver. I could go down to a 2 of Absolver. We have a lot of reliability of draws, and Lee Sin can always get overwhelmed from Paydays. 2 of Absolver is definitely considerable in this deck. 100%. It's an option. I think I still want to play for... Actually, it's probably better to play for the other Preservarium here. We need to get these draws online as fast as possible. Like, Preservarium early is really, really nice. You don't really need tempo, especially in a deck like this. So yeah, Eye of the Dragon is only just losing to some stuff like Thermo Beam and shit. No reason to give like any sort of that like mana value. Like if he's burning, and I'm pretty happy about that. If we had second Lee Sin, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about playing this Lee Sin from hands. I mean, we have Sonic Wave, so he's barriered. You can get like Sentry Flocked, Sentry, you know, Scorched. A lot of combos of that. I think there's kind of no reason to play my only Lee Sin early like this. This is the kind of turn where usually it just wants to be an Eye of the Dragon. I do need to play a second spell. And honestly, it's kind of looking like a deep med for 5 mana into Feral Prescience with Eye of the Dragon. Feels pretty good here. I think that's probably the best play. We just want to force him to use removal on Eye. And I don't mind using a 5 mana deep med here. Deep med's also... The earlier you play deep med, the better. Because it's like... The only thing the spells are doing in your deck is hurting your outs for Lee Sin. We want second Lee Sin so that we beat every hand state. So he might not remove my Eye until I play a second spell. If I use Feral, then he might go into remove my Eye. His attack here is kind of shit. If he actually does nothing to do anything about my Eye, I might actually just pass. If I go in for Feral, he will try to kill my Eye. It might be, you know, if it's like something like a Thermo, then I can answer it with Twin. Honestly, using a defensive Twin on my Eye is probably good in this position. So yeah, I think I will go into Feral here. Either that or like Payday the Eye and hope to get like Top for Spell Shield. That's a little too weird. I don't mind playing Feral early, and I'll very happily put a second Deep Med on top of my deck, I think. There's an argument for Treasure Seeker playing around the aggro condition. Don't think so. Is this deck competitive? Yeah, it's nuts. There's definitely, like, this one has a pretty decent chance of being tier 1. It's Akshan's best chance of like having like a real, you know, because it doesn't need to be tier 1 to be competitive, but to have like a meta smasher. I don't know if Akshan's even core in this deck. Yeah, so it's just this into Flock usually. That might not be worth my Twin at that point. If it's like such a cheap way of doing it. Like his open attack isn't really all that. We have Palms anyway. I think with it, because we have Palms in this defensive hand, it's a lot more okay to just let that through. A lot of hands will actually Thermo or Mystic this Treasure Seeker right now. And just like open attack for maximum. Because this Treasure Seeker is representing a block of 5 to the Thorned. I think if he had Mystic or Thermo, he literally should have gone for it there. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable reading that it's not those cards. Here I think I can just stop one of them with a Palm. Looks pretty straightforward. Just about whether I want to stop the Axe or the extra point of damage. I don't think the Axe matters as much here. I think I'll literally just stop the extra point of damage. Going for the deep med though might have been a misplay. I mean, I am kind of going to like a 10 card hand here. So he's got to play first, you know, spend his mana before us. I'm still happy about this burn. We can burn 3 here. Making them play their cards first is a really big deal. Even if neither of us is using reactive cards, oftentimes you are using cards based on what your opponent's using, even if they're both proactive cards, right? Like, still units that have stat lines into other units. Having more information about your play, making your play after the opponent's play is so good. You guys definitely want to get into the habit of like making passes like that. Here I don't mind like a proactive Tasty if he wants to kill it. Yeah, my hand is like almost a little bit clunked out. I'll still go in for the burn though. Like, it's 1 mana, and I think Tasty just like dies to a Mystic Shot anyway. So with 2 Lee Sins, I'm definitely a lot safer to just like develop one here. And this is where we can start putting pressure on. Probably just killing him on the turn 9. It's like simple of just like forcing removal with this Lee Sin, surviving 1 turn with the blocker and palm, and then just killing him on turn 9 with second Lee Sin. Currently, we don't have Absolver, but between Deep Med for it and Payday, that should be enough to get it. Interesting. Yeah, and I'm always just letting that through. I think... God, what if it's actually incorrect to Payday here? Because my lose condition could be not getting Overwhelm on the second Lee Sin, and this Payday could actually starve me from Overwhelm. I still have 3 Absolvers in this version. I want to enable Deep Med next turn. And I do think it's a little too likely that we're good here. So it doesn't really matter what we got off of this one. The Spell Shield would have been nice because that would have forced an additional resource. But in this case, he's just going to kill it, which I'm okay with. It'll force out like a Scorched Earth or a weird like Flock plus Static, which I'm still fine with. Sure. Whoa! Culling Strike. That's actually kind of sick. So a lot of hands actually love Culling Striking here. This is a smart play in any Culling Strike hand. If he has a Scorched Earth, he should still Culling here, by the way. That's a really, really important line. So we can't, in a lot of similar situations, we'd be like, oh, he doesn't have anything else. But here he just wants to trade Culling for my re-up so that he can Scorched Earth it anyway, right? And so he's basically just trading his bricked Culling in this matchup for my Twin, which is, you know, Twin's a pretty good card here. I think there's kind of no reason for me to accept this, really. I mean, forcing the Scorched Earth still matters for second Lee Sin, though. Yeah, no, it's definitely still worth it. Sonic instead. Is Sonic better there? I guess it doesn't keep it alive from anything else, right? Am I missing something? I guess it's just like a little bit less of a lethal range sometimes. I don't think Twin leads to any lethal ranges though, just because you have 3 Sonics. But Sonic is more of a mana commitment, and I don't want to commit mana into that turn. That doesn't sound good to me. Like, committing mana into that turn is a lot of the way we end up losing the game, right? Because the whole point is we need to make sure that we're banking maximum. We knew we were going to palm and deep med this turn, and even with the discounts, we're going to need mana next turn for our going off, right?
Akshan, or is it just so core?
I guess playing Lee Sin here is actually safer because I can like deep med into the going off turn. Yeah, playing Lee Sin here is pretty safe now. Yeah, no, you definitely don't have to run Akshan in this deck. It's not core. So yeah, to play around basically Arachnoid, I think the Lee here probably makes the most sense. We can enable the deep med to be cheaper by using Rite of Calling, which is good enough. And of course, at this stage in the game, using Rite of Calling on your mana gem is great. Like, we're never unhappy to do that at this point. We're enabling an open attack with Lee Sin and giving us 2 outs, actually 3 draws to hit Absolver. Yeah, so he's got Thermo, which means if he actually has second Scorched Earth, he could be good here. I don't think, I mean, obviously we don't really have much of an ability to play around that. Oops, I literally clicked through before Rite of Calling. Holy shit. That's really, really funny. And without any sort of, yeah, I mean, I guess if he has second Scorched Earth, he's just good. Like, we've got barrier against everything else, but we can never beat a second Scorched Earth hand. So, yep. Usually that deck's running 2 Scorched Earths, so if he has both, then he's just a good player. If he had Sonic waved last turn he wouldn't have been able to play Lee there, for example. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good example of like why banking the mana is more important. And don't get me wrong, I didn't Rite of Calling, which was pointless and stupid, and we might lose to the second Scorched Earth hand anyway. It's likely he has it. Funny that you have lethal with only one spell here. It is kind of funny. It is kind of funny. Like, isn't that wacky? The odds of him having so 2 Scorched Earth is the version of the deck. The odds of him having second Scorched Earth there is roughly 20%. So we're very favored into almost any hands. The only other hands that beat us are literally like Mystic Double Flock, which is insanely specific. Our odds of winning off of that open attack, because we were able to bank the mana for the Sonic Wave, are literally about 70-75%. If he's a very good player and he keeps Scorched Earth in his opening hand in that matchup, which I think he's supposed to, that might be wrong actually, then it gets a tiny bit higher than that. But I even that's like another 5%. Like, we're super favored there. Even if the second Scorched Earth happens, it's just like a random blowout, and that's fine. Trail feels so good. It hits every spot. Like, if you don't draw Lee Sin, it helps you draw into it. If you draw Lee Sin, it protects you, or it can turbo accelerate. It can find you your draw tools, which you have enough of a counterbalance of them here. And like, the 0 mana barrier is actually just unfair. Like, it's pretty actively dumb. Akshan's probably going to be high value in a Draven Ezreal matchup, I'm imagining. I think I just want to play for value here. Stopping early aggression is kind of nice. I don't think I want Payday though. I could see keeping 1 Palm, because Draven Ezreal is built like more aggressively than ever right now. Like, people are, including myself, running just like Zonite, Urchin, and just like kind of like cutting out some of the control tools. I mean, I guess I just Akshan now. It's perfectly fine. It's like, it'll probably just die to like a Mystic or something somewhere along the way. That's interesting. Something that's kind of fascinating is if he actually goes into block, I don't think I would mind Shapestoning, honestly. Ballistic Bot is really, really annoying, and I'm not really in a hurry to close out games the way the new deck is built. My hand is a little bit low on resources. I think I actually don't mind just killing that bot here if he goes into block. We do need like 1 draw tool though. On Shadow as well. That's so funny. But that chip damage matters a bit too. I mean, Lee Sin does not always deal 20. The difference between like 16 health and 18 health and 20 health matters in a Lee Sin deck. So, I mean, you're pretty happy when stuff like that happens. I mean, in theory, I could do like a weird double trick. I'm not going to be summoning the Dragonlings on the defensive turn, and I'm pretty happy just kind of like tanking this. So it looks like this is the easiest Preservarium turn. Like, I will take some damage here, and that will be okay. And Akshan's amazing in this matchup. Like, if they remove his landmark, then they're wasting so many resources. I'm still good if he gets Mysticked. He has like a really nice developmental option. And the 0 predict draw, it actually can help out quite a bit. I think I have to be okay tanking this amount. Alright. Oh good, another Ionia Shurima deck? Yeah, me too, buddy. Alright, so we definitely want to trigger Eye on this turn. I mean, for, you know, Lee Sin and Karma, like decks that run Eye, you want to make sure you're often triggering the Dragonlings on the defensive turns. So you want to often be playing your spells on the offensive turns, right? In this case, yeah, just opening with this looks good. He could do a Sentry Flock if I open with this. And I do have enough banked mana that I'm actually okay with just opening Treasure Seeker instead. Yeah, this mana bank doesn't actually change enough. So I don't want to let him like Sentry Flock my Eye. My Eye is actually kind of important to keep alive. So I'll play the Treasure Seeker first and hope that he taps into that. He didn't, but we gave him an opportunity to. Yep, and there it is. That's the Sentry Flock. So there's nothing else we can do about that beyond what we already did. It's not the biggest deal ever, don't get me wrong. It's not like we're losing the game because he's using 2 cards to kill our Eye, but I would definitely be nice in this matchup. Now here, yeah, the Flock is basically committed. I think I can just kill the Draven using Challenger. If he saves it with like a Mystic Shot, then he's not flocking my Eye anyway. So I do think, yeah, just going into use both Sonic Waves on the Akshan into the Draven feels really good. This is, by the way, the big difference. Like, this is why this deck is running so many Sonic Waves. Because Akshan is kind of perfect for Sonic Wave as well. It's really, really nice. Zed, you know, Zed has been ran in Lee Sin in the past, and it's kind of okay with Sonic Wave. But usually the difference in price actually matters. Like, Akshan is more something that just wants to, like, remove single things. Like, Zed Sonic Wave isn't really doing as much. The Sonic Wave synergy doesn't really work that well with how Zed works. Second Lee Sin is a nice safety pick. These treasure seekers are feeling pretty amazing here. To make sure I have blockers. And Akshan just wants an additional target so that he can level up. Man. It is kind of sad. I mean, he can't actually threaten my Lee Sin here in any way I care about. God, there's almost a consideration to play the Lee Sin too. That is pretty funny. I mean, I stopped the Ballistic Bot from attacking by just using Waking Sands. I guess the Waking Sands probably makes a bit more sense than the Treasure Seeker. Like, his attack kind of blows now. I'm happy to trade down Akshan. It's not, you know, I could level him right now and then we'd have the Horde on board. I don't even know if it's worth it. I'd have to basically just like vomit an Absolver out of my hand just to get the Horde. Do I care? I don't honestly think I care. Especially with like Scorched Earth as an option. I mean, Lee Sin getting Spell Shield later is kind of nice. And we're going to more level triggers later. I don't think it really can be worth it. It is kind of sad. Sorry, Akshan. I mean, maybe if he casts something, it could be worth it for me. Yeah, I didn't think so. Because, like, my Lee Sin is leveling by the time I want an Absolver enabled anyway. So the difference between the Absolver doesn't matter. Seems good. This actually, wow, super weird. That's 2 spells this turn because I Waking Sand. I think I just take Deep Med.
I'm basically 1/8.
Can I play Deep Med this turn? I don't think I'm in a hurry to like Payday. I just want to make sure I'm not running out of resources because we want to set up to OTK him on turn, 2 turns from now. And this is probably the most reliable play to make sure we're not running out of resources. Yep, the Treasure Seekers feel good. They also punish development, which is great. One of Siphoning Strike in this, a little too trolly. So, I mean, if I don't play anything before Lee, or even if I spend 1 mana before Lee, he can barrier himself here. Like, barrier keeps him basically safe from anything. And if I bait, like, resources out and have second Lee Sin anyway, then I just win the game. It's like, he can't really do anything to this. I think this is great. I'd love to see him commit another resource into this. Like, he's not winning the game if he's spending everything. Like, he's down to 4 cards and we have blockers for anything else. And if he uses all these things here, then he's not helping the second Lee Sin. Pretty sure we just let this through. 5 out of 8. I mean, if it is something like a Flock, then I can juggle it. And at that point, I'm pretty fine doing that. I think he basically would have to cast something here. But it's just because he's kind of like low on resources that I'm able to make this play. Yep, looks good. If he had like more cards in his hand, then I couldn't try to bully him out like this, right? Playing this into static is actually kind of bad. That's kind of funny. 2 damage does matter though. So letting that through is potentially a bit of a represent on static. Let's pass action first. I don't need action economy here. Like, it's okay if I give up 1 action. Just not going to give any value to static. I'll use like Tasty Faefolk or something this turn. All right. Tri-beams deal 5. Could be a little bit scary. Double attack. I mean, he's already used like a bunch of sentries. I'm actually perfectly happy just Faefolking now. This one is probably worth it for me to keep alive, especially considered he's tapped out. This kind of like fully heals me and stops his entire attack. So I just heal it with Twin plus Shaped. I mean, I could use one of my Absolvers instead, but yeah, I think it's just Twin plus Shaped. Like, this heals me a ridiculous amount. Basically locks him out of this entire attack. And, I mean, my unit is alive for later. Yeah, me too, dude. I feel that one, bro. I'm not gonna lie. That's not so hot. And I can even, like, potentially play a level Akshan if I go in for the Rite of Calling on the Treasure Seeker. That's not even that bad. I think it's kind of, like, not worth the mana flexibility here, though. It's probably best... Oh, I should probably Feral right now. I think is kind of, like, the smart play. Yeah, we're not going to need this for anything yet. And I think the most important thing is to just, like, make sure we're maximizing our odds of going in for the turn. I mean, I think we're beating any hand already. Yeah, I think we're already beating any hands. I don't think there's anything for me to do. This attack, mister. This is no good. This is such a bad attack. Oh yeah, scout attack me, dude. Let's go. 18. All right. Okay, we secret these. Oh, he's lurking. So I could literally just, like, take another grab at Akshan here. I'm pretty happy just doing this, though. So my league go to 4. You guys might notice that with just the Absolver and nothing else, we're dealing 16 damage for some reason here. I don't know why we're dealing 16 damage. That's kind of weird. That's a little strange. I don't know why that's happening. But oh, looks like he's fucked. Actually, if he's running one Culling Strike, I can't let him Culling Strike his own unit. Culling Strike is too rare at this point. Wouldn't let him get excited his own unit. So this one's better. More people are running less Culling Strike. But the only way he survives is by killing his own unit. So that drag makes sense. Yeah, I mean, he was like... He almost couldn't win that entire game. Like, every step of the way, he had nothing. 2 Treasure Seekers might be correct. It's going to be a tight deck build. 3 Palm is really important, by the way. In these games, Palm hasn't been like a big payoff, but again, you really need to play around your lose conditions, I think.